The next, acetylcholine is number one in our hearts when it comes to neurotransmitters. Okay, we're going to see it all over the place. Number two in our hearts are the monoamines, which is a fancy way to say all of these guys. They're catecholamines. Okay, what the hell is a catecholamine? Well, it's basically norepinephrine and epinephrine. Okay, and it's those two. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about dopamine, but you can see what they're derived from. They're derived from tyrosine, amino acid. Okay. But when it comes to all of these here, you can see there's serotonin derived from tryptophan. There's histamine derived from histidine. There are a lot of these monoamines. The two biggest ones to remember about are the ones I have underlined, norepinephrine and epinephrine. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about dopamine. We'll talk a little bit about serotonin, potentially when it comes with the endocrine system and what it does to the body and how it can help to turn on the brain or turn off the brain. It's involved with dopamine's involved with some pleasure centers or some reward centers. That's probably the better way to put it in the brain. Okay, so we'll mention a little bit of kind of cool stuff about them, but the two big ones here when it comes to monoamines, guys and gals, is norepinephrine and epinephrine. It's these three: norepinephrine, epinephrine, acetylcholine, that we're going to be talking about a lot, especially throughout the nervous system. Okay, it's what helps to turn on the autonomic nervous system or turn off the autonomic nervous system. Okay, these players here. So those are our big three. All right. These monoamines are very similar. Okay, they're basically made in the presynaptic knob. They're exocytosed from the synaptic knob. They travel across the synapse and they bind to specific receptors. All right. So in that regard, pretty similar. Okay, same mechanism. Electricity travels down an axon, calcium voltage gated channels open, causes the vesicles to move and fuse with the interaction of V snares and T snares with the plasma membrane and synaptic knob. You see where I'm going? I keep saying it over and over and over again. Okay, so you hear it. So it becomes that easy for you. Right? Exocytose travels across the synapse, binds to a specific receptor. Okay. And muscarinic, right? G protein coupled receptor. We can turn it on, we can turn it off. Boom. Okay. Every time. Quickly taken back up, except it's not acetylcholinesterase that breaks these suckers down. We have another one, monoamine oxidase. Okay. MAOI are monoamine oxidase inhibitors, right? They help to block the degradation of monoamine neurotransmitters. Okay. These are what are used to help treat depression, Parkinson's disease, anxiety, panic attacks. St. John's wort, I believe, is what doesn't interact with these very well. So if you take a MAOI drug, MAO inhibitor drug, and you take St. John's wort, it contains
tyramine.
Yes, thank you. And that is what causes this very deadly interaction between those two drugs and between those two things, and can cause severe hypertensive situation in an individual. So pretty interesting there with a lot of herbal medications and whatnot. That's why they don't want you taking any of those, because they interact with so many different drugs and they potentiate a lot of different things within the body, whether that be the brain, whether that be the immune response or the blood clotting process. It's all over the board with what they can do. But here, I'm not. You can kind of see how we kind of get from tyrosine to dopamine. I don't really care about that. Okay, Don't care about that. What's the process? Okay. What's the process? All right. Again, we make these things in the synaptic knob. Okay, tyrosine, the dopa, the dopamine, and then we do a couple jiggy things and we turn it into norepinephrine. Okay, I mean, I don't really need you to know that. But the process, action potential travels down, triggers calcium voltage gated channels to open, causes the vesicle containing the neurotransmitter, the monoamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, to go and move and fuse with the plasma membrane of the synaptic knob via V-snare T-snare interaction, neurotransmitter exocytose, norepinephrine, epinephrine, binds to a specific receptor, destroyed by monoamine oxidase. There you go. Okay, that's what I would like you to know. Okay, I don't need you to take me through the steps of the genesis of norepinephrine or epinephrine for that matter. Again, these are G protein coupled receptors. Okay. When it comes to these norepinephrine, epinephrine, they could be excitatory, they could be inhibitory. All right. So generally that is telling you muscarinic. There's our cyclic AMP that I said that was going to be so prominent. Here it is. Okay. And here you go. I mean, you can see norepinephrine binds to receptor. Alpha goes across, activates cyclic AMP. And then that, as we saw in chapter 6, activates a protein, which opens up an ion channel, and magic. Okay. Turn something on, we can slow something down. Okay. And that's what all this says here. Okay. But if you remember that secondary messenger system that we talked about in chapter 6, it's the same thing. Okay. It's the same thing. There's just a different ending. An ion channel opens. Okay. And depending upon the type of receptor it binds to and what disassociates, alpha or beta, we either turn it on or turn it off. I will highlight things on here. Okay. Dopamine is fantastic for reward. We see dopamine involved with two major things. One is basically memory, and one is movements. It's involved with this thing called the nigrostriatal dopamine system. Fancy, right? Black. And striatal is, well, when we look at the basal nuclei in the next chapter, that striatal will make a little bit more sense. Okay. But the substantia nigra is a basal nuclei. It makes up this striatal region. That dopamine, there we go. That dopamine is important, okay, to help trigger and inhibit specific muscles involved with specific fine-tune events. Me going down and picking up this pen. Okay, see, so easy. If I have loss of these dopamine actions within the substantia nigra there, then I as I try to fine-tune, I can't control these fine muscles, this fine muscular movement. Okay, because I don't stimulate and inhibit properly. Cells are lost. Okay. So the dopamine doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Inhibit some upper motor neurons up there associated with the motor region, the somatic motor complex. The mesolimbic, okay, so if I had, say, nigrostriatal is motor control, and that's substantia nigra. The mesolimbic is emotion. And there are a number of regions associated with emotions, okay? And just very simple is just basically the midbrain. There are many others, okay? There are many others there. But this is helping with reward systems, okay? This is going to be involved with, as you can kind of see, addictions, drugs. Alcohol is kind of weird. It affects reward systems in the brain. And then we have the meso system and whatnot within the liver that also allows you to drink more. So alcohol consumption is a little bit multifaceted in its reward. But drugs help to stimulate this system here. And you get that high, you get that euphoria, you feel good when you take that drug. Right? And that's nicotine. That's a lot of other medicinals as well as you can imagine out there that you can take. There's also a faction of this mesolimbic system with emotional reward that's involved with some concepts associated with learning. There's a lot of interesting studies coming out that talk about methods of learning and how you learn. And there's a huge subset of researchers that research with basically pain and whatnot, and the emotional response to pain and our ability to recall and remember. And it's involving this type of region. Okay. So when it comes to dopamine, dopamine's a monoamine, and it's involved with a lot of different things. Okay. Dopamine can go to the nigrostriatal region, substantia nigra. It's involved with motor control, fine motor control. We have another region of the brain, the mesolimbic region, and this is associated with the midbrain, that's involved with emotional responses to stimuli, drugs. Your pleasure centers are getting triggered here. Right? And that makes you want to find more and more of that. So it's that constant going back to that next pack of cigarettes that stimulates that release that makes you feel good. I feel calm. I feel relaxed. It's an addiction. Okay? And drugs, many drugs, stimulate the same region here to get you that release, to give you that feel good feeling. As you can kind of see, norepinephrine and epinephrine can be used in both regions there. In the central nervous system, it's arousal, so it's going to be very stimulatory in nature. Okay? This is what will kickstart the brain to be very aware, fight or flight type of thing going on here. When it comes to the peripheral nervous system there, sympathetic peripheral nervous system will use norepinephrine. And as you can imagine, we're going to get varied effects here when it comes to this. Okay. Smooth muscle in the digestive tract is obviously going to get shut down. Cardiac muscle is going to be stimulated even more. And if you remember back to autonomic nervous system and anatomy, fight or flight, there you go. So this one, when it comes to the peripheral nervous system, it just kind of depends. Depends on the effector.